Hey folks, welcome to FreepCast. I am Casey Eck filling in for Rob Murray. I'm joined as always by managing editor of the Free Press, Joe Spear, and we've got some news to dive into today.
We really do. A lot of good news, some interesting news. It was great to see that Mankato partners for housing and government entities and nonprofits have kind of joined together to apply for this state money to build a homeless shelter and a transitional housing complex with it. And they got denied last year. It was real disappointing, not one dime. There were a lot of requests for not enough money. But this year just announced, we had it in the paper, they're going to get $7.2 million to start the transitional piece of this housing, which is more apparently what the state officials like to see, the transition, so you're not just, doing only homeless, but you're helping people get permanent housing. And it's a great benefit, I think, for getting this whole project started. I think they're going to apply next year for the more permanent homeless shelter and have a complex. And we know, I believe it is going to be located down on the old city land by Cub Foods, where all that apartments are going up, and really got a lot of nice development happening there.
Down by the Lewis Lofts.
Yeah, Lewis Lofts and the Sinclair Flats and the Children's Museum. And that's expanding as well, as we've written about. So there's a lot of things happening down there, and it's great to see. I think it's really a boost to that homeless project, and we know, people can tell we have homeless people in town, and we're trying to make an effort to help them. And God bless all the people at the churches who have been rotating the shelter for years. And just a few years ago, I know now it's down at First Presbyterian kind of permanently during the winter. And then during the summer, Salvation Army has its building open, not necessarily for overnight, but at least people are not freezing. And it's, I don't know if you've noticed it much, but you can see homeless folks all over town. They're very visible, it seems. And I was down at the Buffalo Monument just over the weekend, and there's some trees and some bushes near there, and there's a little encampment set up. So it's good news that we're making headway on that.
Yeah, I think must have been in the midst of the pandemic way back when. I think the problem of homelessness became so much more visible to people. It's not that it maybe empirically increased in volume, but I think the visibility is really the thing that I've noticed the shift in for a lot of people in the public consciousness among the problem.
Yeah, and we've talked to folks who work with the homeless, and some of them have barriers to employment and mental health, and I think they have outreach people that are going out and talking to the people who never come forward to their shelter, just saying, "Hey, do you know where you can get help? Here's a few places," and but they'll tell you some of them just don't want or are fine with how they're doing it.
Yeah, and there's some mistrust, and I think a lot of folks experiencing homelessness have that mistrust of institutions and things. I think fairly enough too, and so it's such a hard problem, but it's good to see that there's some effort to ameliorate it.
Yeah, you make a good point, the mistrust. So we have to keep working on that. You can help by supporting the shelters. They always need volunteers. They need money. They need donations. And, a fair amount of people volunteer not only at the shelter, but also at the Centenary Holy Grounds breakfast operation, which serves about 80 people every morning, I'm told. And we know First Presbyterian can house about 40 people, but they always have a waiting list. So really something to get behind, but the recent news makes it more hopeful, and I think be great.
Yeah, definitely.
North Mankato's in the news a little bit on a few things. They're considering redoing Belgrade Avenue like they like we did Riverfront and Old Town, with some street narrowing, sidewalks widening, making it more pedestrian friendly, which I think is a good move. Some more decorative streetscaping they're thinking about.
Everybody's going to agree with you that it's a good move.
Well, it depends on our Facebook page, I guess. Yeah. And, that's become kind of a little hub over there with the restaurants and the bars and different places sit out on the patio. So that'll be interesting to see. They're going to take a lot of, public feedback like Mankato did, which is good. So it's interesting to see that come about. North Mankato also in the news about the whole animal impound issue. Again, we know Benches, the local animal shelter, had announced to the cities that they're not going to be able to take animals starting January 1, in part because they need to reorganize, they need to get board members, they need to get an executive director. And so the cities have kind of temporarily planned for impounds. Mankato in the old one at Sibley Park. And North Mankato has told us they're going to have a sheltered temporary impound. Not exactly sure where yet, but they're all hoping to see Benches come around and start being able to take animals again. And we are following that story very closely and are in constant contact, weekly contact with Benches and John Brady, who we had in here, the chair of the board, talking about this. And I think it's getting really close. So I think we're going to have some news within the next week about how some of this is going to be resolved. And so stay tuned to our newspaper and our podcasts and everything if you want to keep up on Benches. So, good news there too. Now, a couple things we've got coming up, big news stories over the Christmas holiday period here, of course, is the revival of the Native American ride. This year, last year, and maybe you can describe this better, you're closer to it and have followed this, but it seemed like it almost died out last year. They did have a modified kind of event, but this year it's back going great guns. In fact, there are 2 rides this year. Why don't you talk about those?
Yeah, of course. So to maybe parse it out a little bit, the rides that came in after the official Dakota 38 plus 2 ride had retired the staff, is how they phrase it. That ride was more of an informal affair where people who were involved in the Dakota 38 plus 2 ride, this is my understanding, so anybody with more knowledge can feel free to correct me on this, but they came to Mankato just as a personal exercise, whereas these 2 now rides, the Reconciliation and the Exile ride is what they're called. They're more of a I wouldn't say official successor, but they are more of a measured out. They go through a process of prayer and meditation and generating a staff ceremonial staff that goes along with these rides. So these are more of a direct successor. So Wilfred Keeble, of course, the brother of the late Jim Miller, who founded the Dakota 38 plus 2 ride, is leading up the Reconciliation ride. And then another gentleman, Jimmy Hallam, is leading up the Exiles ride, which is coming from Nebraska, and then the Reconciliation ride, led by Wilfred, is coming from South Dakota. And so they're going to converge like people are used to in Mankato on the 26th. And so coming from different directions, more or less with the same mission of remembering the Dakota 38 plus 2 and the history that surrounds that.
Yeah, I'm always amazed at the effort that goes into these rides, hundreds of miles, right, on horseback, and staying in teepees and other places.
Yep.
It's just, and it's a day, days after days after days. They just started last week, right? So
yes, yep. I believe the
gonna be
Reconciliation was on the 10th, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, all those dates are on Facebook, and we can share the link on our description of this podcast. But yeah, so the other major thing, which was my understanding with the most recent iterations of this ride, is that it's there's been an influx of youth. So, kids from 7 to 13 years old, they're on the horses. They're out there braving the cold just like the adults are.
Wow, that is so cool. I like to, whenever young people get involved, and we did the interview, Tim did the interview and previewed this story talking to the leaders of it, and they really seem enthused about the youth that are get engaged in it. And it's a whole learning their culture kind of thing, not only a history lesson, but a cultural lesson. And I think we're so fortunate to be able to witness it here in Mankato. And it's, when they come riding down riverfront in all those beautiful horses, it's just really quite a sight to see. And you're going to be involved in the photography of this during the ride as well as the day they arrive in Mankato. Tell us a little bit about what your plans are for that.
Yeah, so with the reconciliation ride, there's a longer name, and I don't want to get it wrong, so I won't say the whole one, but I think people will know it as the reconciliation ride coming from South Dakota. One of the marks that one of the characteristics of this ride is that they're going to be traveling some of the smaller towns in southwest Minnesota, and along the way they're going to be giving talks to the youth and explaining the history that went on there. And so I'm going to be heading out to Jeffers petroglyphs, which of course has megalithic history. We're going back a long time, and so it'll be really neat to see the history of the ancient past, history in the more contemporary past, and then just the contemporary ride going on all at once. So it'll be part of that.
What do we know about the Jeffers petroglyphs in terms of their connection to Native American history?
Well, it's we talk about cave paintings around the world and things like that. My understanding is that it's that level of ancient history. I mean, I don't know if they've totally deciphered all the symbols on them, but there's if you go throughout the whole, I guess, campus, you see. There's like a bison rub where you see the actual smoothed out stone from where the bison used to roam.
Yeah.
You see the stone, the petroglyphs on the stone itself, which have been there for a long time. And, all these things, I mean, nomadic culture. And so it could have been the influence of multiple cultures. A historian will probably correct me on a lot of this.
Yeah, no, but it's really cool. And there'll be some really great opportunities for photographs out there. And people should not miss that. I've already requested more space in the December 27th edition, so we're going to have a lot of photos and ones you won't want to miss. So you want to for sure pick up that edition. But it's such a great event, and I'm glad it's kind of being revitalized and involving youth, and hopefully it will continue on for years and years, as we know the first one did, with a lot of dedicated people continuing the ride. And it's got to be a kind of obviously a time-consuming thing, and if the weather gets nasty at all, it's really challenging. I think they told us a few times they went through blizzards and storms, and you have to take care of the animals as well, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. And so one thing that couple things I might also add, just to maybe bookend the discussion, is that the whole ride itself, from the start at the hundreds of mile journey to the end, it's considered a prayer. So it's an act of prayer, and part of that prayer is the animal itself. And so there's a tremendous respect and reverence to the animal, as well as what the horses are kind of saying along the ride in a sense. And so the other thing I would mention is that for anybody who might criticize the ride for being some form of revisionist history and ignoring the white settlers who were killed, that's very much part of the discussions that go on along the ride. So that's not ignored, and I think that's an important thing to mention as well.
Yeah, I think they did a good job in dedicating the monument downtown here. Forgive everyone all the time, or
everything. Yeah.
Everyone, everything. Yeah. So that's great. Really looking forward to our coverage of it. We'll have at least 2 stories and lots of photos. So hopefully people can tune into that, and we'll probably talk about it on the podcast again. So that's great. Another project you've got coming up, quite a different subject. Miss Minnesota is from Mankato.
Yeah, she's going to be competing in the Miss America pageant. We've heard
the
of
big
it
one.
now. Yeah, right, exactly. And so, Emily Schumacher, her dad was my principal in middle school. So
All right.
so I've known her dad at least for a while, and she's just a bit younger than I am. So she's been serving as Miss Minnesota for the last roughly 6 months or so, maybe going on a year. I think she was crowned in June or July.
Yeah.
She'll be heading to Florida for the Miss America pageant, competing in a multi-day endeavor. So I spoke to her over the last few months, caught her along the road, so to speak, where she was giving CPR classes. I caught her at her going away party, and then we had a sit-down interview here. So we're going to be putting together a multimedia package previewing her experience with Miss America.
And that's going to be cool. That's coming up this Friday, right? In our Friday edition. And
Friday Currents is the
Friday Currents will have it, and we'll have the video for you as well. So that's going to be really cool, something you don't want to miss. And we'll be obviously following up December 31st and watching the competition. And best of luck to Emily. It's a great little story. And we've had, I think, Miss Mankato make Miss Minnesota before, but maybe they weren't native Mankatoans.
Yeah, I think we've had some MSU students coming through who, they have not to discount their connection to Mankato, but
right.
But we really do have a homegrown talent here. So
yeah, that's cool.
Loyola graduate, and lots of involvement in the community too. So it'd be cool.
Yeah,
something to keep an eye on.
Other things to keep you busy reading on your Christmas vacation here. We're going to have our top 10 stories of the year. Starting December 26th, we usually run 2 stories a day, starting with the 10th most popular 10th top story, and then go down to the first story, top stories. And these are, we rank the stories, our top 10 stories, by a vote of the newsroom and some other people here at the newspaper. And we just go through in all the big stories and just rank them and what we think was the most important top story. Obviously, we've had 2 huge stories this year that we probably didn't think we would have. One was the Rapidan Dam issue. I don't know if it's right to keep calling that a breach. It's tricky the dam didn't fall down, right? But the water ran around the dam.
Kind of might as well have, I guess. So I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of the minutia here, but right.
Trying to get the right, because I know our Facebook grammarians or wordsmiths will criticize our use of certain words. But anyway, big story, and there's continuing impact on the Blue Earth River, negative impact, which we've done a story on, which is not good, higher pollution, higher pollutants. So that was a big story, and of course, native son, fairly native son, social studies teacher Tim Walz became the vice presidential candidate. Governor Tim Walz became the vice presidential candidate in August. Another pretty big story. But we had other stories too. I mean, we had some shootings that we don't normally have, and some unusual ones, daytime in front of the courthouse. We had the election was a huge story.
MSU dual champions.
Yes.
Big story.
Dual champion basketball teams. That's another thing that doesn't happen very often. I think they said it only happened one other time in the history of the NCAA. So that gives it that unusual news angle that it's going to be in the top 10. So we're going to have 10 stories like that, and you'll be able to recount them and remember how they were reported and such. So that's about what we have coming up. I want to just thank people for listening again and remind you of a few things. If you would like to sponsor this podcast, call our advertising department at 344-6364. We want you to subscribe to the great journalism and public affairs reporting we do here to keep you all informed of your government. You can call 625-3764 for a subscription, or you can email readerservice@mankatofreepress.com, or you can go to our website and just hit the subscribe button at the top of the page. You can also order photo reprints from our partners SPX Sports by clicking on our photo reprint button on our website, or call SPX Sports 345-7196. I'm told by Bridget the photos are pretty updated now.
Yeah, that's right. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification so you can be updated as to when episodes like this and other content comes out. We have a lot in store that we're not quite ready to share, so stay tuned. There's a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon.
Great. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.